Hi, welcome back. We're here for
Hello.
our self-directed learners group call, and it's actually been quite some time since we've been here because we took a little break for summer. I ended up having some fun planned field trips to attend during these days, but also just taking a little breather. Felt like the right thing to do in the moment. But here we are, so we probably have a lot to catch up on since it has been a little bit of a break. Um, I would love to know, Andrea, how are you? Where are you?
Where am I? We're doing really, really good. This has been an awesome, awesome week for us. I'm in Maine, so this is a real background. That is a super cool rock that I've been wanting to get some chalk and like do some art on it, but also let it be able to like wash off. Um, yeah, so this is our campsite. We're in Maine with our friends, our good friends, and yeah, yeah, it's super nice. It's we are enjoying this camping lifestyle. I was saying to my friends, because we have friends that are camping with us, that I still can't believe that when this is over, we go to another campground and another campground and another campground and just keep, because we're, for anyone who doesn't know, we're full-time RVers. I can show you my RV in a little while if you want to see. But yeah, and we've been doing this since February, and it just shocks me still that what we're doing is more affordable than keeping a home, keeping an apartment. And when our friends, like, they've got this 1 week all summer to enjoy each other and to be together and do this campground, and a lot, some people in campgrounds are full time, but some are just doing like a week, and this is they wait all year to do this 1 week at a campground. And I think that that's awesome and beautiful. And then to think that we just keep doing it, it's and that it costs less, that right now, that I don't have I can afford this lifestyle without working. So it's still like kind of surprised. It's kind of, I'm still kind of in awe. Not that it's perfect RVing all the time. That's not perfect at all. But it's definitely super fun. And it's nice to just wake up whenever we want and go participate in the recreation. And so, yeah, it's super awesome, for sure. We like it.
Oh my gosh, that sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. And over here on my end, we also felt that vibe of taking a little lazy summer break. I think it's been a couple weeks now where we called it a staycation and we planned some fun things around here. Um, it's really cool because I feel like when I do just relax, or maybe when anyone just relax with kids and the agenda is sort of put aside, then different things start to come up and different things start to want to be realized. For me, it's like, okay, we're planning this, or we're sort of accepting that this is a fun time where we're just going to relax and try to have a good time. And then naturally, if anyone has a family, I'm sure you've experienced that even when you plan fun things, kids are still, the emotions are like a roller coaster. So it's like the littlest of things, and there can be hiccups here and there. And so I've noticed that even in relaxation mode, when there doesn't seem to be a big agenda, it's like the lessons are still brought your direction. The lessons still arise. It's almost like circumstances don't matter. Like, no matter what we try to set the circumstance up as, like, oh, this is going to be a relaxing thing over here and that's going to be work over there, we try to like categorize it. It's almost like the lessons still always come through whatever filter, whatever container that we have created. So I got to be acquainted with a few of my lessons lately that I actually am still in the process of integrating with my kids. But some of those lessons, just to touch on them. So I noticed that with each of my children, they each bring me something different. It's almost like I'm being acquainted with my own projected judgments and also my tendencies to want to like tell people how they should be. Because each of my children will show me this in a different way. And because I'm feeling the same way from each of them in different areas, I know it's all about me because the feeling is the same within me. coming from seemingly different sources. So I'm like, this is clearly a me thing. But basically, like, each of my kids they have something, they'll do something that's their tendency that I seem to think is a problem and that I seem to want to like fix in them or get annoyed about. And I've just noticed lately how many times I have a mental story attributed to my child's behavior, and how I honestly think a part of me is like projecting this sort of dream-like reality. And I need to ask myself, why would I project a dream where I experience these patterns? Why would I project a dream that way? And do I want this to be my dream? Because it's up to me. And I can totally like shift that perception, which is usually just realizing that nothing's really a problem. Like, that's their tendency and that's what they're working through. And even if I might notice that maybe from my perspective, it seems a little out of alignment or whatever, it's still not a problem. Still not a problem. Like, they're working through this thing. Like, here's an example. My son, my biggest trigger with him is that he is like an obsessive eater. He's a 10-year-old boy. He's a growing boy, so it's probably normal, but for some reason it triggers me. He likes to like eat super sloppy and just like 3 platefuls of food. And I'm like, whoa, bro, whoa. Like, I'm to the point where I'm like, I don't know if I can sit by you when we eat. Like, that's how badly it's annoying me.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And this is just an example. This is just an example of like, hey, here's an opportunity for you to trust a child as they go through their process of experiencing food. Now, that doesn't mean that sometimes naturally out of my mouth, sometimes it's like, hey, I don't want to condition him too much about food or body image or body weight or anything like that. But sometimes I might say, hey, are you paying attention to how you feel? Are you actually hungry right now? Or are you just automatically eating? He'll be like, good question. Things like that, where it's like, let's bring some awareness. But I'm honestly more aware of my own vibration than the words coming out of my mouth. Because I know that if I'm feeling upset, if I'm feeling triggered over this, that is seriously all about me. It's seriously all about me. There's some out of alignment thing that I'm seeing this situation through. That's usually, it's just like that. It's a problem. That's usually what it is. This is like some horrible thing that is going to hurt my son, and it's going to hurt my ego, and it's going to hurt all the things. That's usually the out of alignment thing. And once that is addressed, then naturally there's solutions to, or ways to act that are like, helpful rather than creating more of a problem. But each of my kids has one of these things. That's just my sons, dude. I have 3 other kids. They each have one. So there's a lot to work with.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. And I think, yeah, well, I mean, immediately what you said is that even when you're in chill mode, even though we're in, I don't know, RV life mode, where we're campground, at campgrounds all the time or most of the time. Can you see that?
Is that a bug?
You know what I'm going to say? Yeah, well, yes. This is not some magic trick. Let me.
Not some magic
so,
trick. Are you sure about that?
It could be a magic trick. Yeah. So even though we're in like chill mode, just like you said, stuff comes up. There's always, we're infinitely advancing. So there's always things coming up, even here, in whatever, Paradise, Wonderland, Happyville. So, but that's good because that's just an opportunity. I think what's happening is that you're getting the cue, wait a minute, something's off, someone's out of alignment. And then you might be, it's coming in as annoying, but I think your radar is getting, when my child goes out of alignment, right? Any of them, or even when anyone else goes out of alignment, there's a feeling of discomfort because being out of alignment is uncomfortable, right? It's not comfort. It's the opposite of ease. So you might, so I think that the feeling the feeling disalignment is coming to you as being annoyed. So, I mean, obviously you can work through your reaction, but bottom line is the fact that you're picking up on it being off is good. The fact that they're being out of alignment is knocking you out of alignment is good, because you know what I mean? Because you're noticing and you love them and you care about them. So you're right, you're getting out of alignment yourself, noticing that they are. So I think that that's natural and normal, you know. So when you bring the awareness to it and just then it's an opportunity to help them or not help them, you know, depending on where they are, because a lot of times they don't want help. Sorry, I'm getting tickled by the nature, I guess you could say.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I think that's what it is that we do notice, you know, it's always filtered through my perception though. And that's why everything is so tricky. And I think that's why whenever I feel upset, whenever I feel triggered, I know that it's all about me. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm denying that things are happening. It doesn't mean that I'm denying that my son is eating obsessive, sort of like obsessively, right? Like it doesn't mean I'm denying that that's happening and I'm pretending that that's not happening, or I'm thinking, oh, it's okay, it'll all be fine, watch, that's like faulty positive thinking in my mind. What it is, it's just like, I don't need to resist this. I don't need to make this into a problem. I don't need to make this into a travesty. And also noticing when it's my ego that's getting triggered. Like, what does this mean about me as a parent? Or what are other people going to think? Or I need to shape him into an image that makes me feel good about myself. You know, that's all the stuff that gets brought up in these situations. And typically when we address those root things, when we address those issues, the situation may still be the same, but it doesn't have the same feeling note to it. Now suddenly things are just a bit lighter. And if it is a situation where stepping in and saying something or being helpful in that way is needed, it comes sort of naturally. I like to intuitionally, right? We all know this. That's when like intuition can come in and we can help each other in a very literal sense, right? Sharing information with each other. But oftentimes I find that the helping each other can be done in other ways. Like my son is literally helping me when he eats obsessively. He is helping me because he's triggering within me my bullshit, basically. And so it's like, thank you for doing that. And the help that I need to, the learning and the teaching that needs to happen is always about me first, because I cannot show up for him unless I've done the learning first. It's almost like the learning is secondary on his end. That's what I'm seeing. And it became so apparent, I can't tell you, so apparent when I was getting the same feeling of trigger and frustration from all three of my children throughout these, like, it tends to happen, and maybe other parents can relate to this too, especially if you have a lot of kids. It tends to happen when there's like planned fun activities. We're gonna go do this day trip. And there's a lot that goes into day trips from parents' perspectives, like planning and packing lunch and getting everything going in and out of the car. We went whale watching and yeah, there's the power all went out. Like we get off into the Balboa Island. It's like this little peninsula in Newport Beach. And as soon as we get there, like I literally walk in and like register. I have my tickets and I hand them to the guy and the power just goes, I was like, this is magic. I already know this is magic. I know it's going to bring a little bit of stress and tension, and it's going to bring up some learning. I know that. I also know the fact that the moment I walk in the building and the power goes out, that's magic. Sometimes the universe is so obvious with its things. It's like, oh, cool.
Wow.
Yeah, but it did. So that started to bring up, just as a brief example of how this stuff works, that started to bring up some of our opportunities for looking at our triggers. So suddenly what we had thought, okay, we couldn't buy anything. From that moment on, we could not buy anything because everything is used electronically unless you have cash, and we did not. And even the ATMs wouldn't work. They were all out of power. So like my kids were like, I want this and I want that. And I was like, I want some stuff too. And nothing would work. And so all of that is getting brought to the surface. And on top of that, we're about to get on a boat for 3 hours. And like, so not being able to buy things can actually turn into like, oh, we really got to figure this out right now. Yeah. You know what's funny though? The like the details of the story are actually less important than noticing that whatever is occurring, from my perspective at least, whatever is occurring is always bringing this stuff up. It's always bringing up opportunities. And it's super obvious when you walk into a building and the power goes off right away. It's like, oh, here comes opportunities for learning. They're right around the corner. Yeah, from that lens, it is a little lighter, but you also get to see like, yeah, just like what those tendencies are, because they start getting brought up. Like my two daughters, they like to bicker with each other quite often. A lot of their learning has to do with like competing with each other, sort of picking on it, like finding little subtle digs with each other. And that tends to annoy me. I get the frustration in me, like, oh, that same feeling with my son eating. It's like, what are you guys doing? So, yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're, you know, obvious, you know, these experiences are all opportunities, you know, so it sounds like you're getting a lot of opportunities and, you know, hopefully you're being gentle with yourself as you know, uncover, you know, the false beliefs and, you know, you maybe that's maybe more coming at you because you're in a place where maybe you can do some more like rest and healing and, you know, you can kind of get more feedback and opportunities during this time and probably for your kids too. I think that if it's something coming up with the child, then it's you're learning together. Like your lesson might be different than theirs, but it's definitely two-sided, you know. It's yeah, so I think it's probably a lot of healing going on both parts, you know, you and the children.
Yeah. Yeah, from my perspective, I don't know if we get a break from learning. Like it's just like pretty much constant.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. It's like always coming. Yeah. Um,
Yeah. Oh, that's so
yeah.
funny because I was posting some pictures and I'm like, should I put I like to tag world schooling because that was like the most exciting thing to me a couple years ago when I first heard of world schooling. I was like, oh my God, this is so us. We have to do this. Like this is perfect for us. And so I still love that term and I love just learning naturally with what comes up. But you know, you're absolutely right. And we know this because we're both into self-directed education and unschooling that the lessons do not stop, you know, not because it's summer break, not because I don't know, you close the book. I mean, and I think that this is what Bashar says is that this is why there's no rush, you know, and if you feel yourself rushing, then, you know, you have to just stop and see what false belief is there, that there's not enough time or life is too short, you know, all of those types of beliefs. When in reality, we know that we're all infinite beings, right? The first law of existence, you know, you exist, we exist and there's not, you know, we will always exist. So just kind of remembering that you know, there is no race, there's no limit, you know. We live in an abundant universe and an abundant world. So I think and then sometimes that can get overwhelming when you really think about, you know, that our souls or spirits are infinite, will be alive forever, and you know, that the universe is infinite. That can get overwhelming if you spend a lot of time thinking about that. But I think, you know, it's kind of balance for sure, you know, because we're kind of living this 3D, you know, or whatever you want to call it, you know, we're on the surface, learning more about ourselves and our families as well.
Yeah. 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 And to touch on a note that you mentioned, I do completely agree that the learning is always for everyone involved. It's interesting though, because we do find ourselves seemingly with separate bodies. Um, the learning that is your responsibility is always about you. It's like interesting. And I've actually found that when I believe that it's my responsibility for somebody else to learn, I create a lot of dysfunction. That leads me to do things that like don't really jive well with the people around me. People get annoyed, they get frustrated, or all different things. They could get insecure, whatever, however the personality takes it on. But yeah, I find that the way that we really help our kids learn happens so naturally. It's really like listening and being called to just show up as you are. And then through, honestly, a lot of times it's on accident. It's like I'm just like going throughout the day and doing my thing. And that's just a natural, the way that we interact with each other, the way that life is designed like that, the law of attraction is designed, or whatever word you want to use, is that that's really all we have to do, is like do our own work, stay in alignment, and listen to what we're called to show up as, you know. And that doesn't mean showing up as a teacher. I literally mean that could be showing up as like, I want to go swimming. It could be as simple as that. Or being called towards a creative or a business venture, or being called to listen to your heart in general. I mean, what a lesson is that for your kids to witness, to be around someone who listens all the time to what they're actually interested in. Like, do you see what I mean? It's like by default that we're teaching. And just by listening to that inner calling, that's how we perfectly, like puzzle pieces, match each other in relationship. It's not like I have to take on the role of a teacher as an ego and teach you what my ego or my, you know, limited mind thinks you need to learn. I find myself getting into a lot of trouble when I do that. And I do it. I'm not like, you know, Andrea, we might be inundated in this philosophy, but we still are imperfect. You know, we're still on this journey. All of us are, all together. And so I find myself, especially in relationship with my husband, it's funny. It happens less with my kids and more with my husband, where I take on that role of like, oh, I think I need to tell you something right now, and I think I need to help you with this. And it just causes all this like weird vibe. It's like, oh, static. So yeah, the learning is
Funny.
fun.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think I think it's all about balance, because sometimes, sometimes you do, me, anyone, it is the time to get on the soapbox and spew some wisdom. You know what I mean? Like there is time for that, and I think it's like, is this person listening? Is this speech more, and the speech is usually more about us than it is about the other one, but I think when we do have the urge, what's been coming up for me through this, adjusting to a complete shift in lifestyle, where we're out in nature way more, which is great, but not having the comforts of a home, is not always pleasant, and it can be uncomfortable, and we have to, act on the fly, and just, deal, we're in the game, where so anyways, what's been coming up for me is I just get angry, and I don't yell at my daughter and say things like, you're so stupid, why did you do that, like, I don't I don't yell at her or demean her, but I will yell about what's going on, like, oh my god, the couch is soaking wet again, how did you not notice that? So that's kind of been the emotions that come up for me. And I of course I can, it's a lesson, but I think it's, if I'm getting, if something is coming up, I think it's important to talk about it. And I like to just foster the environment that, look, if it comes out as anger, or being mad, or just being annoyed, and plus she's with her best friend. So we've got two 9-year-olds I mean, geez, they practically grew up together, and they're very emotional with each other as well. So we're just like in emoji. We're like emoji, it's all different. It's happy and joy and fun. And then it's, anger and pain and crying. And, we're kind of doing the whole rainbow of emotions for sure. So anyways, with my daughter and I think when I do notice myself coming out of alignment, it's, it's kind of the process, like we always talk about it, to see it as a way to learn more about ourselves and the other person. And as we're doing this, it improves our relationship. And I love the analogy that you used with the puzzle, then you can, when we're being our true selves, we naturally just fit we naturally beautifully fit together with our community and our family. So but that process of, becoming your truest puzzle piece is for me, I like to just see it as all of the emotions and, negative and positive and, all opportunities to learn more about ourselves and be be even truer to ourselves, and kind of expand. I think every time we have one of those experiences, it's an opportunity for expansion if we can move through the self-judgment phase, because let's just face it, that's a phase. I'm like, oh my god, that water spilled. I usually don't swear, but sometimes, what the fuck, sometimes stuff like that, can happen, and work through the emotion, then work through, oh my god, I just kind of freaked out, sorry about that, and then okay, so what is this really about? Like, eventually, once we're cooled down, we're back into alignment, we can talk it through, and a lot of good things come up. Like, something was coming up with my daughter, her birthday present wasn't right. Some people on the group are helping me try to find the right birthday present, so thank you. um and she was like, well, I'm waiting for you to go onto Amazon and help me find it. And I told her I don't want to shop on Amazon with you, and she didn't know that. So, her moment of anger and, emotional outburst was good, because it got us to learn more about each other. And so I think hanging for me, you and everyone else, hang in there through, especially, I don't know, is it does it is it getting hotter there? Like, did you guys get a heat wave? Did that kind of sizzle you guys up a little bit?
Oh yeah, I mean it's pretty warm. I don't haven't paid attention whether it's hotter or cooler. It's just summer here, so it is pretty warm. We went on a super long walk today, and it was cooking out there. Um, and in fact, it's interesting because today we have a similar experience. It reminds me of, like, just a very simple example of this stuff is, like, triggers are not a problem in my personal opinion. It's like triggers are where we learn and where we come back bearing gifts. It's like the trigger comes up, so we're not trying to avoid negative emotion at all. We're feeling it all so that we don't repress or bypass anything. It's just that the trigger is also like letting you know, like, how we can fall further and further into alignment. So it's pretty cool. But today on our really long walk, we get close to the end and my daughter's sandal broke. And she's like, Mom, my sandal broke. And this is after like a pretty decent walk in the sun. And so I'm really excited to get home. We have like one more hill to go up at this point. And the sandal breaks and I notice my frustration. Like, I'm like, okay, let's fix the sandal. And I'm going and I put the sandal back together, super simple, just pop it back in. And then right afterwards, I'm like, you know what? I bet she thought I was mad at her. And so I turned to her and I was like, hey, did you notice that frustration right there? Even though it was just a little frustration, it wasn't a big deal, just a little frustration. That's basically me just fighting with what is. I'm like, do you know what that means, fighting with what is? And she's like, no. I'm like, the sandal could break. The sandal breaks. And instead of just being like, oh, the sandal's broken, how are we going to figure this out? I'm like, oh no, the sandal's broken. Oh no, this is bad. You see how that feels different? She's like, yeah. I'm like, see, that was all about me. I was frustrated. You didn't do anything wrong. Hopefully you, and I was like, sometimes when people are frustrated, or I think I said always, I can't really remember. I was like, so basically it doesn't mean that you did something wrong just because someone else is frustrated. Like a very simple example like that, like a sandal breaking. And that's a perfect learning opportunity for everyone. And it
Yeah.
seems kind of negative in the moment, but it's really not.
Well, I like that you said that, because usually I will say that to her after, exactly. I'm not, you like, you didn't do anything wrong. I'm not mad at you. It's just the situation threw me off of balance,
Mhm.
and that's usually what I say. I got upset about the situation that happened, and I just want to fix it. So, Um, yeah, so I think it's good that when there are times of emotions with the child, or the child might think that it's directed at them, to have a conversation after and let them know that it was just a situation. And you guys probably, you probably did well through it together.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting. My daughter wasn't phased at all. Like she wasn't like, oh no, the sandal's broken. She was like, fine. I was the one who was frustrated. It's funny. I'm such a big fan of like making mistakes and owning up to them. Like that's the best. It just gives you so much freedom. I do that with my partner too and my kids. It's like, oh, whoops, you see that? That was an example of like someone who's frustrated with their own thinking. You know?
Awesome. Yeah, I love that you have that self-awareness. And, I think the more you can, it's really just about um, coming back into alignment, because when we're back into alignment, that's where we learn. Um, so it's nice to hear that the lessons are still coming for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I really feel also that it's like these stories, these sort of like wisdom stories or whatever you want to call them, just like very mundane everyday life stuff is so relatable to everyone. And just how that is used and played out in a way that does bring us back to center is just, I don't know, super relatable. I wanted to add also like letting yourself off the hook like that, like being able to be with a trigger, to maybe like get hooked by a trigger a little bit and then own up to it and give yourself self-forgiveness, but also discuss what happened maybe and just explain that it was all about yourself. That is something that you offer yourself, but it's something that you offer everybody else. Like it's not like I let myself like own up to the mistakes and stuff like that and forgive myself and I don't do that to other people. It's like that can also be offered to like all your kids. It's like, oh, it's okay, we all do that, we all get a little upset. It's sort of like letting everyone off of that hook of self-condemnation, which can be a learning lesson all in its own.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, I agree with you so much. Um, yeah, and I think that when we show them, like, oh, hey, guess what? I'm human too. I make mistakes. And we can talk about it after, and we can go back to, we can, if you want to call it alignment, or go back to being happy, or whatever you want to call it. So I think that it's a nice kind of family philosophy to forgive, move on, to learn, which is really just coming back into alignment after whatever you want to call it, a learning experience, a walk. I know Abraham Hicks calls it the wobble a lot. Have you heard
Mm,
that?
actually, I don't think I have, but I love it. The
Isn't it?
wobble. I feel the wobble.
Yeah. Yeah. Because, when we realize that the lows in life, the wobbles, the downs are really just opportunities to know yourself better, and to learn something new, and expand. um then you can kind of move through them. I'm not going to say that they're always graceful, but as graceful as possible.
Yeah, totally.
And maybe that's more of the lesson. They can see us being graceful, being honest. They can see us through wobble moments of being emotional, or you know and then coming back into alignment. So I think that that's great that they can see us as examples of how we want them to be. They don't have to hide or lie in shame because of something went wrong, and they're afraid we're going to punish them. They can just be honest. You could just be honest with yourself, and then you don't have to get into the self-loathing, or when you're ruminating, like, oh, I can't believe I did that. Like you were saying, I'm such a bad person. Hopefully we can keep them open to talk about, and to talk about what got them out of alignment, and to move on, and to teach them that this is a natural process and a great way to live. so that they can um, just move on and move forward and not have to hold on to all of those yucky moments.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I think that that habit towards self-condemnation has its root in, a false belief, as everything that feels negative does. Uh, I think that when we look at how elusive reality really is, how dreamlike it really is, it's like it's not real in the way that we make it. So when we do fall out of alignment and start to manifest or act out our pain, project it outwards, that is something that can be shifted out of so quickly. And it's not like, gosh, if I believed that this was all there was, and this is reality is really concrete and objective, you know what I mean? Then it would be a total travesty every time that we made any sort of mistake, because it's like, oh my gosh, it's like set in stone, right? You can't change it, and it's done. It's done. That's not the way that it is. We're like shifting through timelines, and the whole point is to learn the practice of like what it feels like to be out of alignment, what it feels like to act out pain, and then to bring yourself back and to I guess you could say create anew. However, from the perspective that I'm in right now, it almost doesn't even feel like that. It almost just feels like we're almost letting go of creating. We're letting go of like the physical reflection almost, which I can get into if anyone's interested at another time. But yeah, so that's why it's like the faster we can shift, we're giving ourselves, that's actually where we have the most opportunity at evolving or transforming or whatever you want to say, quicker. There's no rush, but that's actually the fastest way. When we stay stuck like that, we stay in that negative vibration. So I think that's what we're offering our kids too, as an example of like, you don't have to lay all that on you. You can shift through this stuff. Kids already do that so naturally. I mean, if you watch them, they can be, especially my 1.5-year-old, can be having a total breakdown, temper tantrum, crying, and then a second later, like see a butterfly and be like super stoked on life. Like that's how we are naturally, like, crystal clear, able to shift like that. It's only beliefs that get us hung up and stuck.
Yeah, totally. And when if you take a step back even further, is that, choosing, like I think we talked about this way in the beginning, then you're like, oh, I think I'm going to choose alternative education, like traditional schooling didn't feel good to me as a kid. So let me look into some other stuff. And then you're like, oh, yeah, this unschooling stuff sounds cool. Like, let's give this a whirl. And you don't realize that because you're choosing a lifestyle that is in real time, that is in the present moment, that you're also choosing like this gnarly healing journey that's going to bring up everything, you're like, wait a minute, so um I guess it's nice to be further along the path, not that there is a measurement, but at least to the realization that like, oh, okay, choosing unschooling, choosing self-directed education is 99% about the parent deschooling and healing and accepting who we really are and what we actually need, and what we don't need. So
Yeah, it's interesting because I feel like our stuff is always coming up. Our stuff is always wanting to be worked through, and you can call that healing, right? Like our emotions, and you can see this in children. So like no one is exempt from this. You can see it in all age categories, like our perceptions, our emotions, what we're working through really interpersonally or psychologically or spiritually, that is always pretty much present and always vying for our attention through our emotional body primarily. That's how it gets our attention, through pain or through positive feeling. Like it's really intense for the human experience. We're inundated in emotion. So when we layer something on top of that, when we're like, oh, okay, and in addition to that, let's put a school system on top of that, and like a curriculum, 13 years of curriculum that we're gonna try to force down our throats. It's like that other stuff is all still there. It's all bubbling under the surface. Now it's just being layered on top of, adding another layer of stress. I mean, the amount of like subtle trauma that the body's going through when we do that is like crazy. So it's like unschooling is really cool because we get to actually be with the stuff that wants to be worked through. And to me, that is what life is for. That's what we're here for. We're human processors. We're human beings. We're here to be with what is and to work through it. And so no, it's not easy. But it certainly is, it feels more right than like this double blah, blah thing that the school system likes to do.
Yeah. When you really take, like, now that I'm talking through this, and it almost makes sense that there's so much chaos and confusion added to life, because when you just do natural, that's when all the shit comes up. I shouldn't say that. I think that the lessons keep coming no matter what style you choose, but I think it's so much more obvious. And when you're choosing to be in the present moment, that's where everything is. That's where all our healing opportunities are. That's where all the joy is, the bliss in disguise, right? But when you're cluttering your space or your life with all of this, things that take you out of the present moment, perhaps it's not as, the path isn't as, I think you can just get sidetracked so much. You're focused on all of these other things that you're not, it's not, the direct focus isn't always, my relationship with my child, or maybe that is always the, maybe we can get sidetracked. But for me, I believe relationships are always most important, so taking the time to work through the stuff that happens, the natural opportunities, and to get to know yourself better and the child is, I wouldn't live any other way. I feel like this is the life for me. This is the way I want to live, awake, authentic, real time, in the present moment, for sure, rather than cluttering it with, we have to do this, we have to do this, we have to go here, we have to go there. I think the more free time you have, the more opportunities are going to be presented for growth and healing.
Yeah. I think from my point of view, I found that like it's almost like we can't help whether it's free time or whether it's busy, unless we're very conditioned to be busy, or we're very conditioned to, like, I don't know, just have free time all the time. But typically for those on a spiritual path, we've done a lot of work, right? So it's like a lot of listening, a lot of finding out what's really true for you. And when I get in that mode, it's like life takes me where I need to be a lot of the times. There's moments of downtime and there's moments of busyness. And it's funny, the mind comes in a lot of times. And like, I think my conditioning comes from more of an entrepreneurial type thing. In my 20s, it was all about that. So, the mind would be like, oh, you should be doing this and you should be doing that, and thinking that the downtime was nothing, right? The downtime was meaningless. When in fact, when I allowed myself to de-school myself for a while, it was like, and life was calling me literally to do nothing. All of that shame and judgment was coming to the surface, and I was able to look at it and luckily, thankfully, have the tools to process it, because there had been enough experience with negative belief work where I was like, okay, I know these are negative beliefs coming up, and able to like see how much learning actually was in downtime. Then naturally, life also brought me to certain periods of time where it was more fast paced. It was busier, whether that's actual work or whether that was actually being called to like plan fun things with my family, or whatever it was that seemed like life was busier. In both of those containers, there was tons of learning experiences, and tons of learning being offered. The thing that was mainly the thing that needed to be worked through was the judgment over whatever place that you are in. It's like, just let yourself be taken where you need to be taken, because each container is going to show you something. So it was pretty cool.
Yay, yeah, I love that. Trusting where we at, going with the flow. I think that's a really good kind of note to end on tonight or today. Um, yeah, and that's probably my biggest lesson right now, as a planner and the type of person that's always planned and been um more fast paced and just learning to go with the flow has been the greatest gift, probably the hardest thing for me, but it is just the greatest gift to just trust the road or trust the way, if reservation gets canceled, even if I do like freak out a little bit at first, to just be like, okay, instead of judging myself for freaking out, just being like, okay, now what? Ooh, wait a minute. Okay, yes, I did just freak out, but now I can get to like, ooh, what's going to fill in? Like get excited for the free time, get excited for the free moment, get excited to see what the universe brings to me, what opportunities. So, and I have had some opportunities. So it's just so fun to play with, like your experience with the electricity going out. I mean, some of it is so obvious and it's
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah. It is fun. Yeah. Yeah. It's always for learning. I love it. That's been a big thing. I know we're out of time, but that's been a big thing. It's like, oh, if I just get in the right vibration, then the electricity will come on at the perfect moment and I'll get everything that I think that I need to get on this trip. And then I remind myself, wait a minute, it's actually not about even thinking that you are going to get physically what you think you need. It's always about bringing up belief systems and little learning opportunities. It turned out the electricity did turn on, right, with like 30 minutes to spare. And we were able to go get some little goodies and stuff to get on the thing. But even if it didn't, like I was able to to let go. And I think that's so applicable to a lot of our lives when we're like going through this manifestor spiritual type stuff. It's like, in my experience, I'm getting to that point where it's like, oh, it's not even about it like working out, like, oh, this is happening so that it can work out better in the future. It's actually just always about our perception. It's always bringing us back. Like, so it's even shedding that expectation. So, hey.
Yeah, I love it. Great. Well, so do you feel like Tuesdays are gonna be good again, or should we go back to once a week? Or we got a mobile hotspot, which has been life changing. You probably know the most, having Wi-Fi and not having Wi-Fi, but we've got it on board on our camper now, in our camper. So I should be good to connect from anywhere.
Oh, nice. Cool. Yeah. So actually I can do Tuesdays for at least a month. And then from there, I'll let you know because during the school year, I will be going and working full time. And maybe at that point, weekends would be better. But for now, for a couple weeks, Tuesdays sound really fun. That sounds nice.
Yay. All right. So I'll post it and oh, can you upload today's?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'll post the next couple Tuesdays and anyone listening, you're welcome to come join us, join the conversation. We're happy to talk about anything related to children, families, self-directed education, unschooling, deschooling, parental healing journeys is usually what we talk the most about.
Yay. Awesome. Good to connect with you again after that time, and also anyone who's listening.
Yeah.
I guess we'll see you next week.
Yeah. See you next week. Awesome.
Bye.
Bye.